My name is Neil Dwyer, and I teach here at the college, help put the magazine together every semester, and it's my privilege and honor, really, to welcome you here to this, our last reading of the semester. We have cards, but this being the last one of the semester, a very active literary program. We bring in, this semester we brought in 3 writers who did workshops with students and one-on-one interviews with students and public readings on all 3 campuses of the College of Southern Maryland. That's our Prince Frederick, our St. Mary's, and our Charles County campus here in La Plata. So I do hope that you will take this opportunity this evening, not only to enjoy this evening's readings from writers among us and photographers and artists among us, friends and family, just a very enjoyable event, this one, but that we also remember that there will be more programs in the fall, and we're going to start in October. We have a full schedule of readings. Poets, writers, a playwright will be coming in from New York. So a full schedule for the next academic year. And the website, which I believe is on the inside front cover of the book, if you go to the website periodically over the summer, not only can you review some of the previous editions of Connections magazine, but you can look at videos, YouTube videos, that we have a vast library of videos from writers who visited the college over the years. I mean, the program's been going on for over 20 years. And you can also then get an update for the fall and the spring activities. And I do hope that this will be the first visit and that you'll come back and enjoy the offerings that we have here. My role this evening is simply to sit back and enjoy. I just want to say that the program itself that you have, if you have the card, it's going to be adjusted as we go through. But I did want to just take note of who is here, because I don't know everyone. Is Margot Fitch here? Thank you, very good. And Eric and Jim and Katie are here. Is Noah Reeves here? Very good, thank you. And Kate, I think I saw. Kate, are you here? Yes, indeed. And then Stephen, are you here? Stephen, good. And then Paul, it's like I'm calling roll during class, for God's sake, right? Isn't it? Same thing, present. And yes, Paul is here, great. And Kalaya, are you here? Yes, great, okay. And then Jim is here. And then Carrie is here. Imelda, are you here? Very good, thank you. And then Jennifer is here, Joanne is here, and Christopher is here. We've got a very full evening, and I'm going to get out of the way and let the writers and the photographers come up here and talk about their works to the extent that they want. You can come up, you can simply read, or you can come up and you can talk about what inspired your piece, so long as we keep it short, because you see that there are many, many people here this evening, and it's so heartwarming to see you all come out. And it's a good thing the rain ended, because I thought it was the end of days this morning, right, with the rain coming down. And now it's comfortable, it's warm, the rain's over, and we can sit back and relax and enjoy some nice poems, stories, and photographs. So let me get out of the way, enjoy the images as they pass by, and Margot, you'll be up first.
Hi, if you've read the contributor's bio in the back, I am one of the English instructors here at CSM. I see some familiar faces that I forced to come here for extra credit. Hello to my students. A lot of my work deals mostly with mental illness, with suffering from mental illness, as well as being a person who is in contact with somebody who suffers from a mental illness. So just to give some context to the poem. And now here is my reading. The Worry Tree. I loved every ring of worry and doubt you held coiled in your belly, and when the branches crept up your throat and out your mouth, I trimmed the hedges in hopes that my butchering would keep them from growing, but you could never choke them down. When the thorns grew between your gnarled teeth, I knew I couldn't fight the monster in you with hedge clippers carved from the inside of my chest. And when the pestilence told me to go, I could have sworn in the rustling of your leaves, I heard you begging me to stay.
Good evening. I'm Katie Brewster. I'm very happy to have my family here with me this evening. Everybody. This poem was actually inspired at a very happy event for us last year, June 18th, the marriage of my son Andrew and his wife Megan. It was just a beautiful day and very happy joyful time and a lot of fun. And I need my glasses, excuse me. Sparks fly upward. Vertical shooting stars zigzag into a darkening sky. Faces glowing, eyes sparkling, follow as they soar high. Bonfire popping and crackling sends grains of light up to dance on the evening breeze, swirling and twirling above. Craning our necks, we follow their flight, disappearing over treetops, well out of sight, but not out of mind.
Hello, I'm Jim Brewster. That's my wife who just read right there. And that was a wonderful, wonderful job. I'm the author of Red Herring, which is on page 26. The history behind this did have an alternate title, was called Her Father's Gun, A Compact Story. I don't know whether you've heard of, in the English classes, the concept of Chekhov's gun. Chekhov, I think, was an advocate of, if you're not going to use it in the story, don't mention it in the story. So, and the whole point was, if there's a gun on the mantelpiece mentioned in the first chapter of the book, as readers, you're going to expect it to show up somewhere in the story. My pastor happened to use that as a sermon illustration one day, and to show how creative we are, I spent the rest of the sermon creating the first couple of sentences of a story that didn't use the gun that was mentioned in the beginning. So the other, the variant of this was Red Herring, because you'll find out that the use of Chekhov's gun in here. Alicia, the youngest of the fatherless family, eyed her father's gun above the mantel. To her knowledge, it had never been fired. She only knew her father through retold stories and aging photographs. "What happened to Daddy?" she had asked. "He had to go away," Mom said. Her brothers and sisters stared at her. "What was Daddy like?" she had asked. "He was nice," Mom said. Her brothers and sisters pursed their lips. "When will Daddy come back?" she had asked. "Not for a while," Mom said. Her brothers and sisters looked at the ground and kept silent. "Now go out and play," Mom said. She did. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone. I want to set the record straight. Jim Brewster and I did not coordinate our outfits before we came in. I'm Eric Shoemaker. It's a delight to be here tonight. The short story that I wrote, called The Blue Tractor, was true. It's an ongoing mystery. I won't tell you where it is. It's very close to here. I usually write fiction, so this was quite a departure from my normal stuff, where I find myself in the middle of the Sudan or someplace like that. It's gone, I thought. The tractor was gone, just gone. It had been parked nearly in the same spot of a small field we drove by each day to and from home. My wife and I noticed the tractor in the field in both summer and winter for the past couple of years. It was obviously an expensive piece of equipment, but it sat in all weather conditions right there, uncovered and alone. The parcel of land it sat on once hosted an old frame house located near the road intersection from where we observed this ongoing mystery. The parcel was mixed field and woods, and at the wood line were 2 or 3 decaying timber outbuildings. The house had sat derelict for a long time. After the mystery began to unfold, we learned from friends who knew something of the old families in the county. The owners had died long before, and the property was now owned by their elderly niece, who lived out of state. Last fall, the house was torn down, but the tractor remained. Adding to the mystery was an old man in a well-used white truck parked on the property nearly each day we drove by. Sometimes we would see him sitting in the truck, just sitting there. I lost my place. Once or twice, we would see him standing with his hands in his jacket pockets looking into the field. Sometimes we caught him driving in or out from where he had parked his truck near the tractor or outbuildings. Why was he there? Was he a distant relative of the people that owned the house? Was he the son of the present owner? Or, more interesting, was he paying homage to a memory of maybe his grandparents? Was he mourning his youth, a place he and his grandfather would farm the field? Was he trying to fill a hole in his soul in a place that he was truly happy, a place filled with joy and love, a place that, if left empty, would allow even his memories to dim and be forgotten? The tractor was now gone. So was the white truck. What happened? Did the old man die and his estate dispose of the tractor? Did someone steal it? Showing my age, this reminded me of the sad ballad released in 1962 by Walter Brennan about an old man called Old Rivers. Old Rivers was an elderly farmer, a friend of the song's main protagonist during his childhood. The protagonist recalled he didn't remember when Old Rivers wasn't around. When not in school, the boy would walk behind the old man and the mule-drawn plow while Old Rivers cultivated his small field. Sometimes the old man would take the boy aside and tell him of a place he one day was going when he would climb that mountain to the sky. The place is not specifically named, but the lyrics, walk up among them clouds where the cotton's high and the corn's a-growing, and there ain't no fields to plow, imply that Old Rivers was speaking of heaven. The ballad concluded when the boy grew to manhood and left home and learned from a letter that Old Rivers had died. The old man finally walked up the mountain he had looked forward at his passing. The parallel between the ballad and our own mystery posed more questions than answers. For years, when recalling the ballad, I wondered whether the boy ever returned to the field and he and Old Rivers cultivated together. Did he seek out to be in the presence of the joy he had experienced with his old friend? Of my own mystery, I wondered whether the old man in the white truck and his blue tractor were real-life versions of Brennan's ballad. Were there special memories made in that field? Was this the one man's holy place, sitting unnoticed, surrounded by the hustle and bustle of the world passing by? The luckiest among us have special places, some even holy places, to go to contemplate, pray, or be in the presence of the memories of love, joy, or the people long gone. The mystery continues about the blue tractor and the old man. It may be part of the greater mystery of what it means to be connected to something or someone and how we choose to observe those sorts of connections. My wife or I never had the courage to approach the old man and solve our mystery before he disappeared. However, at a distance, we felt connected to him, despite not knowing, or maybe because we didn't know, why he sat there in his truck hour after hour. We keep hoping to see the blue tractor, white truck, and the old man again. No matter how strange it may sound, we miss him.
Good evening. I'm Noah Reeves, and my poem originally was a summer poetry class assignment from Miss Heinhorst, and she told me numerous times to submit it to this magazine, and eventually I listened to her, and now it's become the poem you see. I've been tattooed for over 48 hours. over 48 hours. For those hours, nothing else exists, creating a masterpiece on flesh. The combination of a dentist office mixed with tattoo ink. That smell is my home. Each visit brings memories back. I remember every line, every shade of color, the dull ache by the wrist, hitting nerves that I can feel all the way up my arm, to the sharp burn in the pit, more or less likened to setting fire to the skin with knives being scraped across. This is the necessary sacrifice. You learn to live in the pain, letting it wash over you rather than fight it. Sink into its searing embrace and let it burn away the stress. To the older woman who stopped me at 8 a.m. to tell me my mistake, that tattoos would cost me my future. My mistake is my crowning achievement. To my mother who insists I must be mad. Truthfully, I might be mad. Mad with the desire of creation, painting scenes of unparalleled beauty upon skin, bringing color to the plain. The drive home is the culmination, the high after the pain, the calm after the storm, the reflection on what I just did to myself, what I put myself through. Like a prisoner being released, I can't resist but go back. This is the escape I crave, an escape from the deafening noise of everyday life. Into the buzz of the gun, into the burn of the needle, this is my escape. Let the ink flow, watch my walls go, fire up the gun, Tyler.
Good evening, I'm Kate Lassman, and this poem, Archwalker, on page 24, originated on a trip that my husband and I took out west several years ago now. And Mesa Arch, mentioned in the poem, is one of the prominent features at Canyonlands National Park in Utah. We visited 6 different national parks on that trip, and Canyonlands was one of them. So, Archwalker. The young millennial seems an ordinary hiker in a t-shirt, ball cap, cargo shorts, and sunglasses, but then he climbs on top of Mesa Arch, stands perched where the rocky earth, a thin bridge under his feet, meets the air, filling the canyonscape open and daring and free. Something in me also yearns for flight as he upraises his arms like wings.
Hi, everybody. They shine like no other. Those bright yellow beams of sunlight peeking from the earth. And for me, the dandelion is the truest sign of spring's arrival. No, not the robin foraging for worms, not the tiny frogs peeping in the woods, not even the first rush of rockfish up the Chesapeake Bay. The true arrival of spring is that unwavering dandelion popping up boldly and assuredly. There seems a resolute confidence in the heart of every dandelion. They cannot be stopped. I'm told that this true harbinger of spring sets its course early when with unopened, fully formed, and colorless flower buds just underground. It's true, I've peeked. They were there, nestled tightly atop sturdy, thick roots. With that first warm magic rain at the end of winter, those pent-up buds push up. They lack only daylight to shine. Dandelions are my favorite flowers. Simply by reputation, a dandelion is the brightest sun yellow of all spring blooms, is botanically evolved to survive magnificently, has served humans since antiquity as food, high-quality nutrients, and medications, and are fun for children. Yet the dandelion is unfairly maligned today as a suburban menace by frustrated, perfect lawn-seeking fanatics spraying and cursing the little yellow beauties. Phooey, I say to these polluting maniacs. If you love plants, as I do, you know that the dandelion plant is one of nature's engineering wonders. When the flower wilts and drops its petals, the flower head brackets curve backward into that familiar puffball of delicate parachutes, like an origami trick. a feathery parachute attached to each of as many as 200 seeds that can blow off to travel long distances. The trick serves us well as well. For adults camping or hiking, the puffball serves as a humble meteorologist. It folds up before it rains and opens when skies clear. And for kids, well, grown-ups have always handed off puffball folklore to their children, such as, if you blow 3 times, the seeds left tell you how many kids you will have. Remember that one? Or, seeds left there tell you how many years left before you get married. My favorite was to catch a wayward seed parachute and make a wish. Funny, they always came true if I shared with my folks. I also loved the dandelion flower because it is a beautiful composite. Not one flower, but dozens packed together atop the paper-like hollow stalk, flexible enough to withstand hurricane-force winds. Again, ingenious. Medical uses of dandelions by civilizations past, just a quick Google click away, are not for me to list. But I can attest to the better-known nutritional values when I get a lift from eating the young leaves fresh in salad or steamed, boiled, or sautéed. Add a sip of brandy-like dandelion wine or my tangy dandelion root coffee, and you know why my favorite flower, the true harbinger of spring, is the dandelion. Now, if you will excuse me, I must tend to my pet dandelion. She grows huge in the limestone-rich soil next to my house. I give my Great Dane of dandelions organic fertilizer to stretch its large lion's teeth leaves. The center flower stalk is also taller and sturdier than normal because I trim the shorter ones. And its 2-inch wide flower makes a puffball the size of a tennis ball. Try one sometime for your pet plant, but not near the neighbor's yard. Thank you.
My photograph is on page 60. I was just roaming the streets of New York, as I enjoy doing, as I often do, and just image caught my eye. I thought it represented the urban environment, and I enjoyed the lines and shapes and curves. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm also a teacher here, but actually in the communication department. But I'm here tonight to represent the Maryland Writers Association. For the last 2 years, I've been coordinating a Young Writers Contest. But I want to actually recognize someone else. Where's Edna? I know you're back there. So Edna Troiano was actually the person who came to me and said, hey, shouldn't we start one of these groups? They have these Maryland Writers Associations. And so she and I got together and we started this group. And having been a young writer like many that I've seen here today, as a young writer myself, it seemed impossible unless you were something like Stephen King to get anything published at that time. So if I had had access to something like this, it would have been amazing. So our idea was to get young writers from the high school level and our college here to submit, and we want to recognize them. So I'm not sure which ones are here tonight. I think there were 2. If you're part of the Young Writers Contest, can you come up for me? Yay, we have 2 people. Okay, so I want to make sure I said her name correctly. So we have Kalia Thomas here, and she is one of our CSM students, correct? She won for fiction, so congratulations for that. So these guys win not only the honor of having their work published, but they get a nice check from the College Foundation. So thank you to the College Foundation for funding this. I really appreciate it. Then we also have Kayla Riddick from Lackey High School. Is that correct? Yes. And she was our high school poetry winner. So congratulations to her. And I just want to recognize the other folks won in fiction. And then we had another CSM student, Ashley Groves, who won for poetry. So I believe we want to do a quick picture. Krista, who is our president of this year NWA. We also, if you would like to join this group, Krista put a sign-up sheet in the back. This group is awesome. It meets monthly. How many members are in here just right now? Thank you. So they meet monthly, and they're all kinds of writers, everything from poets to fiction writers. I'm a former journalist.
Yeah, a lot of journalists, fiction, nonfiction, novelists, a lot of talk about, a lot of discussion about publishing, a lot of guest speakers, published authors, and it's a really great group. We meet on the third Wednesday of every month here in this building upstairs. And if you want information about it, I put a sign-up sheet in the back. Just put your name down and your email address, and I'll just add you to the mailing list. And then you'll have information about meetings. If you want to come, you can decide later.
Hi. I wrote my suicide. It was a class assignment, and it turned into the story. My name is Bobby Turner, and on March 4th, 2012, was the day I couldn't take life anymore. I lived in Boxville with my mother, Olivia, my sister, Becky, and my father, Brock. Boxville is one of the ghetto towns in Alabama. Drugs were easy to get, gangs were everywhere, and there were a couple of deaths every month. My mother and father raised me and my sister in a godly home. To be a part of a gang or do drugs was forbidden. We were to be leaders, not followers. My life before high school was perfect, except the occasional teasing from my little sister. But then life started to suck. Well, everything at home was good, but I always dreaded going to school. So let me just say that I wasn't the smartest or coolest boy in the 9th grade, and I got bullied every day because of it. It wasn't the entire school that bullied me. It was mainly a clique of boys called the Blue Dragons. The leader of the Blue Dragons was Matthew, and his side boys were Johnny and David. These boys were the it boys. They had the best clothes, were tall, and had muscular bodies. The Blue Dragons were very consistent at bullying me, and their favorite time was at lunch. They would take my food and tell me that I could afford to miss a meal or two. My best friend Billy would laugh and agree to whatever they said. I couldn't blame him because my mom had always told me not to let people picking on me see that it affected me because it would make them want to bully me even more. One day, Billy and I were eating lunch outside in the courtyard, and Matthew came and kicked my tray out of my hand. I got up and told them to stop messing with me. I shouldn't have done that because that is the day I found out that my mom is always right. Matthew started beating me, and then David and Johnny jumped in. That is the day that I found out that my best friend wasn't who I thought he was. He ran, not for help, but for his own safety. When I went to the nurse, she told me that my nose was broken and I had a black eye. When the nurse called and told my mother, it all went downhill from there. My mother came up to the school and talked to the principal about what happened to the Blue Dragons. Mr. Johnson told her that he couldn't do anything because there were no witnesses.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jim McDonald, and I have a picture called Big Bus on page 57. I want to thank Professor Dwyer and the board for choosing my picture to be published in this publication. My mom drove school bus here in the county for 32 years for almost every Keller down there on Gallon Green Road. And so school buses hold a certain, there's a certain love, there's a certain thing that is in my heart. And myself and my buddy Raymond back there, we're always going places that we're not supposed to go. I don't really like doing that, but Raymond, I'm sitting in the passenger side and Raymond's driving, so I kind of got to go, so, because I'm kind of afraid of shotguns and stuff like that. But we're down at Coker Creek, Tennessee, and I also had a picture published in the last edition and it was called Noon Over 10 Tires. I took that picture, and then probably 2 or 3 miles down the road on the left was this bus, and I just couldn't help but think about Mom in this bus, and you know, there's all kinds of thoughts and processes going through my mind about it, but it had a heck of a life. You know, the proud, big, yellow bus is now sitting rotting in the field after it took care of all of our kids. You know, now, shamelessly, okay, Professor Krista Keys back there, she taught several classes of mine, and so as I am learning to become a writer, by default, I'm becoming a salesman. You know, so this is my this is my book, okay, Twilight the Sunshine, and it has 25 points, and it is loosely based on, well, it's based on my life very directly. You know, as a kid, through some failed relationships, depression, and at the end, how God pulled me out of that muck and the mire. And one other thing I forgot to tell you all, that, you know, I don't have a nice Kodak. You know, I don't have some nice, fancy, really expensive camera. But what I do have is an LG G Stylo, you know, and this is what took my picture. It's a 13 megapixel, some kind of aperture, some kind of other stuff, you know, and it makes phone calls. Thank you all.
Hi guys, I'm Carrie Lovejoy. It's hard to be up here, it's nervous. You guys all look nice, so it'll be all right. So, first I'll tell you a little bit about Sunil Yapa. Was one of the speakers during the Connection series who came in and talked. And I wrote a press release about him. So I was kind of surprised when Neil asked me to talk about it, but I started to realize, yeah, I understand why. So I'll tell you, that's what the story was about, and that's what's in here. I was one of the Connections writers. I'll read you some quotes, and then I'll give you a little bit of information about what we do when we interview. So these are Sunil's quotes out of the story. If you try to write a relevant novel, that's not really the purpose of a novel. It just takes too long. There's no way to respond to current events. A novel is about expressing what it feels like to be human in this moment. So you think about a novel that's, you know, it's over several years. Well, what he had written was about civil unrest and protest. And he had written it after 1999, after what he had seen and witnessed there. And so then he writes this novel expecting it to take years and years, which it does. And then when does it come out? Now, right in the middle of all of the civil unrest, when we're having protests every weekend. There's a march on Washington for something every weekend. So it was just kind of interesting how it just serendipitously came out at the same time. So then he says, when I look at protest, it's something that may not even change things politically, but the people who participate feel a powerful connection to each other. In that moment, they feel less lonely, less disconnected, less alienated. I don't know how many of you guys followed what happened after the Women's March or during the Women's March, but that's exactly what people were saying that day. The photos that were being posted to all the social media were smiling faces on the metro, people who felt together. And again, how amazing is it that he wrote about something that happened in 1999, and here it is happening as his novel is being released. So, Yapa said his novel is about emotion, and it goes beyond the initial anger and grief that his characters feel. When we get angry, our anger burns out. So what can we find beyond that anger? Can love and listening overcome the divisions between us? That's pretty profound. Yes, we should question everything, but don't be afraid to care about things. So, the thing about an interview, about whenever you're talking to somebody as a journalist, where you're writing a press release or a feature story or sometimes even a news article, is you're not writing your own words. It's not your words, it's not your story. So the art in writing a news piece or a feature story comes in the interview. You can't start a feature without the interview. A feature story is not something that you can say, okay, I know the facts, I know when Sunil's gonna be here, that's what I've got so far. You can't base a feature on that. You have to talk to the person. Otherwise, the story's about me. It's not about the writer. It's not about who wants to come and see him. So you go into the interview with some facts about the subject, who they are, why you're talking to them, and why in this moment their words matter. So then as you're talking,
You push a little this way, you pull a little that way, and you try to direct them, and that's where the art comes in. That's the only part that I, as a writer, am gonna have in that interview. You let them lead you. Sometimes you might have to go this way or go that way, but you need to let them lead you to where they want to go. And then, just like everything else, and this is the best advice in the world, you listen. You don't listen to respond, you listen to learn, and sometimes to help direct, but sometimes you help them find the right words, but you must remember that the words are not your words. It has to be their words. That's what a feature story is about. It's not about you, it's about them. So that's all I got.
Hi, my name is Imelda Driscoll, and I'm a Filipino, and I migrated to the United States. The novel that is coming out soon is many years, many decades in the making. It was always in my head, but I'll go and read this, but I want to tell you something about my relationship with my country and my adopted country, America. The first time I voted in the United States, I was with my husband, and I went to a local school here, and I was looking around, and he asked me, why, what's wrong? And the question I asked, which really floored him, was, there are no guns? There are no men with guns in the polling places? And he thought I was joking. And I told him I lived through martial law, and every election day, there were many people who died in my country. There were also many dead people who voted in my country. So I always tell my students, you should be happy that you are an American, that this is a democracy. But this novel is just timely because of what is happening. To understand what's happening today, we should go back in history and see what's been happening all over the world. That's what I tell my students in sociology. I teach sociology here, and I bring them the world every time, and I tell them what's happening in the Philippines, what has happened in other parts of the world. So I am going to read an excerpt from my novel, and if I become emotional, it's because this is a person that is parts of several persons that I have met all those years during martial law. The woman in the nipa hut. No, please, stop. Lord, deliver me, please. Mama Mary, St. Jude, St. Teresa, please help me. The woman cried faintly, incoherently, as yet another man, sweaty and foul as the first, with just as much stench from tobacco and beer in his breath, mercilessly smashed himself inside her over and over again. A shot to the head or a knife pierced through my heart would be more bearable, she thought weakly. She begged for death to come at every surge of pain, but all she felt was her blood oozing down her thighs as the deafening roar of wild laughter and bestial shrieks accompanied the mocking rhythm of the crucifix swinging like a pendulum over her breasts, jolting her back to the worst nightmare of her 22 years on earth. These men, she sadly reminded herself, who raised entire villages and slashed the necks of old men and nursing mothers in front of their babies, were her countrymen. Like her, they were Filipinos, born and raised Catholics. They had wives, sisters, mothers, aunts, nieces, and grandmothers. There were men in uniform who took oaths to uphold the law and the safety of everyone. But this is 1975, she realized. Only 3 years after President Ferdinand Marcos declared martial law, the Philippines was in turmoil. Poverty, injustice, censorship, and corruption reigned. Fear and mistrust gripped the land. From the most sophisticated people in Metro Manila to the simple, impoverished folks in the mountains of Samar. Women, especially the poor, were vulnerable. When they fell prey to the whims and evil desires of these men, they were dismissed as mere collateral damage by a military that behaved like a private army, working only at the orders of one man. Disobedience was not tolerated. The arrogance of these men was second only to the power their leader wielded with absolute impunity. Her thoughts went to her older brother, Manu Carlo. She willed for him to come. He always made things right. As a child, she worshipped him, following him around whenever and wherever she could. She hated every girl he brought home to have dinner with the family. Then he went away to join the military. Doubt and confusion zipped through her weary mind. My brother, is he one with these men? Does he do what they do? No, he's not like them. These men have nothing but cruelty in their hearts. No, my brother is not evil, but he is one of them. No, he can't be. She had known him to be God-fearing and a gentleman. God, where are you? I need you now. Have you forgotten me? Why? Is there a God? Dear Lord, have mercy. Manu Carlo, where are you? After what seemed like eternity, she felt her whole being slowly drifting into the shadows. She prayed for death to come, for the sleep of death that Hamlet invoked, for the peace that would come with oblivion. But respite, even with death, was not to be. Cold, muddy swamp water, mixed with saliva and beer, splattered over her face, cruelly bringing her back as her body stiffened, defenseless against another brutal, carnal onslaught. Hours afterwards, with only the dying glow of a kerosene lamp seeping through the darkness, she awoke to an eerie silence, except for a tiny gecko staring at her from its perch by the base of the lamp. The nipa hut was deserted. She was alone. Cringing at the cruel images that would forever be etched in her memory, she tried to move only to find her wrists shackled to the bamboo floor with ropes that dug into her skin. The slightest movement pushed the sharp threads onto her flesh. Helpless, she stayed motionless as the night wind blew cold ripples across her naked skin. Through the fading glow of the kerosene lamp, she could barely make out her clothes, torn reminders of how they were ripped off her body by her attackers. She had heard and read about gang rapes and had wondered how women could have survived the trauma that came with it. But to be the victim yourself, no one can fully understand your anguish, your pain, your feelings of shame and self-doubt. And it's moving. Although thankful for the darkness that enveloped her body, she cringed in revulsion at the sticky and smelly reminder of her night in hell. Numbness swept over her. There was no denying the surge of anger and shame that pierced the depths of her being. She felt raw, dirty, and devoid of dignity. How did I allow this to happen? What have I done? How can she face the world again? They had violated her body. They had desecrated her soul. Unsure of what to do next and wary of making any movement lest someone came back, she turned to look for something that would cut the ropes around her wrists. She had barely resigned herself to her utter helplessness when she smelled burning leaves. Chills ran through her spine. Smoke was seeping through the slits in the bamboo floor. Fire was raging outside the hut. The silence was shattered by the crackling sound of burning bamboo. They have set fire to the bamboo grove, she realized in horror. Now all they will find would be my ashes. Yet a fiery peace was not to be. Another sound permeated the crackling leaves, the thump of boots rushing up the bamboo steps. Terror gripped her once again as a shadow loomed in the doorway. Panic took control. She tried to get up, but her bones and muscles deserted her. Every movement she made dug the ropes deeper into her flesh. She wanted to scream, but only a faint, inaudible moan left her parched throat. Faced with the futility of flight, she fell back onto the hard bamboo strips. Barely breathing, she fainted, oblivious to the gentleness of the hands that hastily but gingerly cut the ropes around her wrists. She did not see the compassion in the eyes that tried to give her limp body some privacy, nor feel the warmth of the arms that covered her with a jacket and hurriedly but carefully carried her through the inferno to the dark safety of the rainforest. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Well, I think this is the biggest crowd in the 24 years I've been coming here that I've ever seen. And I'm so happy to be here to see some of my most treasured educators, truly educators with a gift. And the gifts that they gave to me to inspire my poetry, I thank them for. My work is on page 18, and it's entitled Personal Ad. EOI, existentially oriented individual, seeks same, who understands that making and sharing a cup of tea alone or with others is a sacred right, that planting a garden behind your house in the suburbs is an act of defiance, that the only mundane activities are ones engaged in without a conscious mind. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Joanne Van Wee. My poem is on page 28. Interesting things I learned today through the convergence of your secrets and a National Geographic magazine. Okay, I will not talk about those things you or I did when we were 14, because they are our things, our regrets, our retracted hands, our need for what wasn't there. But do you recognize us in nature's mystery when I tell you octopus fossils are rarely found in nature because animals with soft bodies generally leave no trace. They disappear. Listen while I stare into your eyes. Can you hear my cornea, my irises, my pupils? Because superior canal dehiscence syndrome thins our temporal bones, forces us to hear our own interior functions, even our own eyeballs moving. I never knew that hearing your own blood rushing, your joints bending, your skin creasing could drive you insane, but I believe it. Because what would your heart breaking sound like under that nocturnal thunderstorm? What does it sound like when the octopus is threatened? When that ink is released from the inside like a dense poetic cloud? I realize now that even though you tell me those things of yours, even though you share those parts of yourself with me and hold my eyes still with the beauty of your chromatophore skin, you are always in the process of escaping, keeping that crevice in sight. And you will completely disappear one day. I will search in earnest for proof of your existence, the reflection of your hand symmetrically placed in mine, but I will come up empty, because animals with soft bodies like ours generally leave no trace.
Coming at the end of a program means I'm all that stands between you and refreshments. I'm aware of that. But I would like you to indulge me as I read, in addition to my poem, one by a student of mine, Corinne DeMeglio. It's called Shine. She worked very hard on this. It's tremendous, and it's on page 49. I'll read that, then I'll read mine, if that's all right. Shine by Corinne DeMeglio. Looking up from keyboard and display, my shine so intelligent, almost complete. Distant banging sounds, ratcheting of wrench, thread machine, and burnt oil spent. Tighten the joints the dad would work, grunting, twisting, turning. Bucket of copper dumped on the floor, T's and elbows, reducers and caps. Shine 'em up, he'd say, shine 'em up good, plenty of paste. Wood wheel, rough ride on the bumps, apple cart slow, firmly on course. Sunny day glistening, the fruta nono huffs the wagon down. yellow lemons, red apples, oranges, and bananas. Light pressing a finger to sun, shine 'em up, he'd say. Shine 'em up good, colorful, to please. Compilation of code complete. My fittings and fruit shined artificially. That's great. And now my one, which is the end of a long book in progress, called As the Year Grays into Fall. As the year grays into fall, raisins freeze to honey on the vine. Love bemuses us to leave it all behind. Our wild innocent, for all her song in flight, has this in mind as the year grays into fall. Go or stay, it's up to you, all's fair in love for thee and thine. Love induces us to leave it all behind. She's proud to stand up tall, so you can stand one step behind as the year grays into fall. Yet if not, she's perfectly all set to walk away from me and mine. Love reduces us to leave it all to her then, all her innocence, her song, not mine. Love amuse us, leave it all as the year graces to fall. Thank you.
That's really cool stuff. Thank you all very much. That's great. I have just two things. I want to wrap up the program this evening by publicly thanking the other editors. They're on the inside front cover there. Sonia Fernandez, Rachel Heinhorst, Krista Kais, John Kulikowski, David Phelan, Brenda Jones, and Darius Sanchez. Please, a round of applause for them to have that, put that together. And lastly, there are refreshments in the back. There are extra magazines up front, and I believe there's some in the back too, so please help yourself. And one last thank you and one last round of applause for all the people who read here tonight, please. Did a great job. Really, really well done. And look on the website. Check us out sometime in the next month or so. We'll have it updated. And if you write poems, stories yourself, please consider submitting next fall. The deadline is Halloween, October 31st. We'll do this back again here in December. Okay, so it was great to have you. Thank you very much.